All right. Well, let's
So
just dive in with Joe here.
you're steering the ship.
Okay. All right. Joe in Virginia says you have questions for me. What do you want to know?
Hey, Kenneth, you remember me?
I do, Joe. How's it going?
This is our third time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I can ask them to both of you, but you're a big MMA jiu-jitsu guy, right?
Used to be, yeah, a long time ago.
You get your black belt?
No. Purple, which is the most fabulous of the belts.
Yeah, purple's good enough. I mean, you can kick people's butt with a purple belt. I'm a big jiu-jitsu guy, so.
Okay. All right.
But, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to, I call you because I kind of think you're one of the most reasonable guys to actually have a real conversation with. So.
I hope I don't disappoint. Arden's here. Arden's even more reasonable than I am, so you're in luck today. Just
Depends what you're gonna say.
Yeah, just an explosion of reason over here.
Yeah, I don't want anything to be combative or anything. I'm not really interested in arguing. So.
Okay.
Just a few questions. Okay.
What can we do for you?
Do you think God exists or God does not exist, and how confident are you in whichever one you believe?
Ooh, I like it. We've turned the interview format around onto the host. I love this. Okay. I am not convinced that any gods exist. And based on the definitions that I've been given for various gods, my confidence level is at a 0 that any of those gods exist.
And I guess that's probably the same for you, Arden, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I might be like a 1%, like a deistic, polytheistic kind of conception of like the universe God, this like that like makes sense, but like I don't believe in it, and at that point it seems so indistinguishable from a non-God that I'm like this has no value to me. That's like saying like my water bottle is God. Like, okay, maybe, but that doesn't mean anything. So
yeah, that doesn't make any sense to anybody. I don't think people saying the universe is God makes any sense. So okay. So you think, Kenneth, you think it's equivalent to Santa Claus, right?
No, because I think that there's, I'm kind of talking on my ass right now, but I'm pretty sure there's like a historical Saint Nicholas. Whereas with God, I think that, where there's legends that are built into the Santa Claus thing, I think that as far as I can tell, every time I hear God invoked as an explanation for something or as a being that people can have a relationship with, it seems to be sort of just this invented fiction thing.
Yeah, I was just talking about Santa Claus. There's some guy in the North Pole,
Sure.
We both know that that's pretty much 0%.
I would agree.
All right. Do you think that you have any bias, and that maybe there are reasons people do not want God to exist, and maybe there are reasons people have their own personal bias, maybe that they don't want God to exist, and maybe some people have their personal bias, they want God to exist?
I would certainly agree that people have biases where they would want, certain things to be true or not to be true. And I bet Arden would have a lot more interesting stuff to say about the sort of mechanics of those biases than I can. But my bias, I try very, very hard to encourage my bias for wanting strong evidence-based beliefs. I want to believe true things. So, and there's a number of ways out there to sort of become aware of cognitive traps, to become aware of biases, to try to mitigate the risk of things that are going to cloud you coming to true conclusions. So I'm very much biased towards learning as much as I can about those things so that I don't accept any nonsense or bullshit, and the things that I believe I've got good reasons.
Yeah, I mean, if the Christian God exists and I'm going to hell for being me, and being me literally hurts no one, that's a pretty strong bias I'm gonna have to be like skeptical of whether this God exists, because that's, to me, that sounds like bullshit. I'm not hurting anyone. I can't control who I am. If I'm gonna go to hell for that, that's pretty wild. So like I think it is a bias that like would cause me to be skeptical in the first place. But I think when you apply skepticism and like good evidentiary standards and evaluate the claims like on an individual basis, you can kind of skirt the bias. Like, of course, there are going to be gaps. And of course, there's probably going to be times when people point out like, hey, like you maybe rejected this claim with not good reason. And if that's the case, I hope that I can be intellectually honest and say, yeah, actually, you're right. You know what? I'm going to take some time to evaluate this claim a little more deeply and hopefully have a more evidence-based position on it.
Yeah. And I'm super prone to irrationality. I'm super prone to having stupid biased beliefs. I don't think there's a single human being on earth who isn't susceptible to bias. No. So.
Okay. I mean, there are parts of me, like I'm a theist, and there's parts of me that doesn't want God to exist. So, I think it can go both ways. That I think there's plenty of reasons to not. My personal view of kind of this online atheist movement is nothing personal against you guys, but I think it's much more of I think a lot of it has to do with kind of psychological and mental desires as much as it is intellectual. And I'm not talking about you specifically, but that's just how I see it.
Well, I mean, in light of the fact that you are just talking to us today, I can tell you that to me, the question of whether God exists or not, my want shouldn't come into it. It either is the case that God exists or it is not the case. And then based on what the evidence tells me, I need to, live accordingly. Because if the gods that people tell me exist are in fact real, then me saying I don't want to believe that could put me in a pretty shitty position in light of, claims about eternity and all that stuff. So I think that I don't think it's ever a good thing for us to delude ourselves or to allow ourselves to cave to motivated reasoning and base our beliefs on what we want to be the case. I think that's a good way to be wrong, and I don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
All right. I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you apply the same skepticism to your own atheist beliefs?
Give me an example of an atheist belief.
Okay, well, you don't have to believe this as an atheist, but generally, people believe, probably in abiogenesis or macroevolution. I would say probably generally, not everybody. And I don't know if you've ever seen what the odds are of even maybe like a single protein coming from life, coming from non-life.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I give you a quote?
Sure. Give us a quote.
Okay. The chance that higher life forms have emerged through evolutionary processes is comparable with the chance that a tornado sweeping through a junkyard.
Don't say a 747. Don't say a 747.
My 7th grade science teacher told me that. Oh, Jesus, Joe.
No, Joe. That's terrible. That's not true.
Do you know who said it?
I'm going to just throw, I don't know, Ken Ham? Who said that?
Fred Hoyle, the father of who coined the Big Bang cosmology. So
okay.
He's a pretty reputable scientist.
Well, I mean, the term Big Bang was originally used as a pejorative, right?
I don't know the history. I just know that.
You can look that up. Look, here's the deal. So that statement would there's two layers here. One, you said he was a reputable source, and we need to talk about that. But first, the idea that a tornado ripping through a junkyard would produce a 747, that is in any way analogous to evolution is nonsense, and it betrays a deep ignorance when it comes to what evolution is. Because there's no selection methods at play with the tornado. There's nothing going on there where you would arrive at
starting from non-life.
Life starting from non-life has nothing to do with evolution.
Well, it has to start abiogenesis, right?
That has nothing to do with evolution.
Well, evolution has to start somewhere, right?
Sure.
So life eventually had to start from non-life.
There's a lot of people that don't believe that. There's a ton of Christians out there who think that God created life and then evolution got us to where we are today. What would you say to those people?
What do you believe?
I'm asking you. You're the guest. So, because the evolution is a fact and the evidence for evolution is conclusive. So, whether life was...
Are you talking about microevolution or macroevolution?
Yes.
Which macro?
All of it.
So macroevolution is a fact.
All of it. All of evolution is a fact.
No, I'm just talking. They're different things, right? Microevolution.
No, they're not
No.
different things. They're not different things. The only difference is
They're
time. No, the only difference is time.
I thought macroevolution was different from microevolution.
It's not. These distinctions are used by creationists.
Oh, Kenneth's cutting
All right,
out.
so you're sure?
To confuse.
There you go. Oh, is he back?
There we go. I'm back. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
The thing I said, I'm having tech issues today. I'm sorry,
That's
folks.
okay.
No, these terms, micro and macroevolution, these are terms that have been popularized and they're used by creationists to confuse people. But there's evolution, and there are a number of different methods of selection that operate within the broader theory of evolution and how we refer to the process by which we arrived at diversity on this planet with respect to life and biology. Okay, so whether life started by abiogenesis or Jesus is irrelevant to the fact that evolution happened and is happening.
Okay. Well, if you say it's a fact, I mean, I don't agree that macroevolution is a fact. I mean, you may say this, but
don't believe me. Don't believe me. Listen, Joe, do not believe me. I want you to assume that I am completely full of shit, and I want you to go to the nearest college and knock on a biology professor's door and say, this asshole on the internet told me this thing, and then let that guy or woman or whoever, let that person explain it to you. But don't believe me. Test it.
How did you get that evidence that macroevolution is a fact?
I mean, I don't even know where to begin. We can talk about genetics. We can talk about the fossil record. I mean, it's everywhere. But this is not really the forum for it. You need to go on the Talk Origins website. Go on Wikipedia. Don't believe me. Just I'm telling you. I'm asking you. Apply the level of skepticism that you would to anything, and then go see what the scientific literature says. Go to your local museum. Go digging.
Do you think we evolved from a fish?
A fish?
Yeah.
I do not think we evolved from a fish. I don't think any scientist would tell you that was the case either.
That's what Richard Dawkins believes.
I don't think that's an accurate or fair or honest assessment of what Professor Dawkins believes.
If you go far back enough on the evolutionary, quote unquote tree, are you going to find organisms who primarily were aquatic? Sure.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Does that mean that we came from fish? That's a really loaded statement to disagree or disagree to.
Kenneth, you can look it up on the internet. Richard Dawkins says it, so don't call me dishonest for saying something.
I've read Dawkins' books. I've even spent time with the man personally, and I'm 100% sure that nowhere in any of his literature, there might be one or two of his books that I haven't read. I don't recall ever seeing we came from a fish ever anywhere.
I've seen him say it. He said it on the internet. You can look it up. Why don't you go?
Okay, Joe, I'll humor you. Yes. Like I said, if we go back far enough, there is fish in our evolutionary history, sure. But yeah, when you say we came from fish, I'm getting the impression that you think when someone says that they mean a fish had a baby and that baby was a human, at some point in our history, and that's not what anyone is saying.
No, I didn't quite say that. I said, do you believe we evolved from fish? And Kenneth said, no, Richard Dawkins did not say that. I'm sorry.
Right, because Kenneth can sniff out that you're trying to give us a very loaded statement when you say that. I don't think Kenneth is denying that there are fish in our evolutionary history.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine.
And we could know that by looking at our genetic makeup and looking at the genetic makeup of different, aquatic creatures, mammals and otherwise. I mean, we could look at this and trace that history.
Okay. All right. Well, he did say that, but either way.
Okay.
Do you think an infinite regress of the events is possible?
I don't know. Sure.
Maybe. I don't know.
You think an infinite regress of temporal events is actually possible?
I don't know.
Like hypothetically, or do you mean like that it has literally happened? Like, again, you're serving these like loaded statements, and it feels like you're trying to trap us in saying like these things.
And our understanding of time. I mean, time, breaks down and gets funny once we get closer and closer to the Big Bang, right? So I'm not sure that the question even makes sense. But what's the point?
And again,
I'm just saying that. I'm just trying to question you guys. I'm not trying to do anything personal. I'm not hating on you because you're atheist. I'm just trying to be skeptical.
I just want to know your point. Like, I feel like you're trying to get to a point by asking us questions, and I feel like we're not getting anywhere. So, like, is there like a deeper point to your call that you're trying to like demonstrate that by answering these questions that we are like not being logical in our beliefs, or like where are you going with this?
Yeah, what's the point?
I'm sorry you don't like being questioned. No,
it's not that.
Joe, nobody said they didn't. Yeah, nobody said they didn't like being questioned. But this is a call-in show with limited time. We've got other callers too, so we're trying to be respectful to everybody. So, what's the point of the questions? Where's it going?
Well, if logically an infinite regression of events is impossible, I mean, I think it's pretty, and I think you should show the same level of skepticism to even that even being possible.
Okay, we're not any closer to a point. What's the point here, Joe?
All right, I just don't think this is going anywhere. But Kenneth,
I agree.
I appreciate it.
Joe, you're killing me here, man. So wait a minute. So you're a theist, right? Did we lose Joe? No, Joe's gone. Man, right when it could have gotten interesting. Well, hey, I'm glad we could clear some stuff up.
Cool. Again, if his whole point was to say that he thinks logical and like regressive events is impossible, like, okay, that's I mean, you think that if that's all you want to say, that's fine, I guess.
And just to clear this up for Joe, I mean, Joe, I said I don't know, and that's the deal with skeptics. Sometimes the best thing we can say is I don't know, because if I want to proportion my beliefs to the evidence, and I don't have strong evidence that, or any evidence that an infinite regress is possible or impossible, and I don't know, I don't even understand the question that you're trying to get at,
Right.
Then saying I don't know is the honest thing to do.
I agree. But that's why I was also kind of like, like hypothetically, can I imagine that an infinite regressive event is possible? But like, are we talking about in the real world? Do I actually think that's happened? That's a completely different question. So